Secrets can lead to misunderstanding. Misunderstanding can cause fear. Everyone knows what fear can do. We are here to learn and shine the bright light of truth on these stories. You will know why. Show Me Scares.
Hey guys,
Hello there.
I'm Shayla.
And I'm Terry.
Welcome to Show Me Scares. Again,
Yay, we're back for part 2.
finally.
Yeah. We're
Yeah.
slackers.
You know what? Okay, guys. I've been struggling lately with a lot of things. So, I'm sorry, but I will try to be better for you all. It's been a lot lately. A lot of stuff. So, I hope you all are sticking around and you're waiting on these. And I'm really sorry that I'm running late all the time on everything in my life. But I promise I will get my shit together. And
One of these days.
one of these days we will be on time with something. Something will happen on time. Maybe the live tomorrow will happen on time.
We'll see.
So when we left off, we were talking about the ball knobbers. And I mean, obviously this is all about the ball knobbers. But also just Nat Kinney was released. There was no charges against him for killing Sam Snap. And no, that was the guy that was with him. Andrew Cogburn is who he killed. Sweet Lord.
You're still not with it.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I don't know what's going on. So anyway, we'll pick up right there and just continue going. This actually might end up longer than the first one. And that's part of the issue with this one is I'm like, I could make 5-10 episodes out of this because of how much there is. And like the ball knobbers of Taney County were not, you'll see, we're going to talk about some more, but we're not the only ball knobbers or vigilante groups at the time. This was a time in U.S. history when these were popping up all over the country, these kinds of groups. And so if we wanted to talk about like the different groups that kind of spun off of these, we could have a whole podcast dedicated to that. Mm-hmm. So I had to figure out what's a nice, clean way to do this without it becoming boring and maybe too much history. But that's hard for me to decide because I love the history. So hopefully I have given you the pertinent details and you enjoy what I have to tell you. So let's jump right into the story. Within days after the shooting of Andrew Cogburn, around 40 people who were opposed to the ball knobbers gathered in Forsyth to discuss the problem. They drafted a petition to the governor of Missouri, John Marmaduke. In this petition, they asked for permission. That's a
lot of peace.
That was a weird sentence. They asked for permission to establish a militia as well as the weapons to protect themselves against the vigilante gang. So at this point, these men were made to protect the community from violence. Now the community is saying we need protection from them. Mm-hmm. Like we've crossed over at this point. 3 men offered to carry this petition to the governor in Jefferson City: Jacob Hayworth, J.J. Reynolds, and Dr. Kenneth Burnett. The very next day, Nat Kinney and several ball knobbers rode into Forsyth. They publicly threatened those that had attended that meeting. Kinney said, "We have spotted all of them. Revenge is ours and we will have it."
Wow. They're out of control.
Yeah, a little bit. Hayworth and Burnett backed out of the trip to Jefferson City, leaving Reynolds to take the trip himself.
Poor guy.
Yeah. He's like, I don't give a shit. Just give me the paper. I'm leaving. The only anti-ball knobber left in public office, because remember, he wasn't up for re-election at that time. Mm-hmm. He had just won election the year before. He wrote to the governor begging for his help in dealing with the vigilante mob. He stated that they needed the help of the state because the sheriff of the county was a sympathizer of the mob and would not act against them even for justice. He also explained that there was only one man coming because of fear of retaliation from the gang had forced the other messengers to drop out of the trip. He warned that something terrible was going to happen without state interference because those opposed to the vigilantes were preparing to defend themselves and their community from the attacks of the mob.
How sad.
So violence is going to break out. It's going to happen. Please help us.
Mm-hmm.
Upon his return, Reynolds reported that the governor had promised to send a representative to get both sides of the story before he would make any decisions. Still, the anti-bald knobbers began gathering and preparing a militia to combat the bald knobbers. And Reynolds wrote to the governor to report the progress they had made. So he didn't really get permission to do this whole gathering of a militia. They just started doing it, and then he was writing to the governor saying, hey, look how good we've done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He predicted the militia would be at around 80 men by mid-March. On March 11th, though, the bald knobbers, with Kinney in the lead, held a mass meeting with nearly 300 men in attendance.
Holy crap.
A few more than 80.
Yeah.
The next day, Reynolds wrote to the Secretary of State explaining that recruiting had come to a halt after this show of force from the bald knobbers, and this had scared away any that had wanted to oppose the vigilantes.
So much for the 80 people.
Mm-hmm. What did the bald knobbers actually do at that meeting? They drew up resolutions condemning the creation of a militia in their county.
What?
Okay, like, because the people who opposed them were getting a militia together, so they're like, well, we're going to make it a rule that you can't do that, so...
We're in charge here.
They also wrote to the governor asking him not to interfere with the affairs of their county and that building a militia would lead to unnecessary violence.
Gosh.
Not something that they would ever do.
Yeah.
The message would be carried to the governor by 3 members of the bald knobbers, including the sheriff of the county.
My.
They stated that the orders for a militia were based on lies and that the county was well prepared to deal with the criminal activities of their county.
Wow.
The petition, I can't say that word, I don't think.
You're struggling with that one.
The petition was signed by nearly 250 people. Okay, we've established they have the manpower. The governor faced a pretty serious dilemma here. If he intervened and caused backlash from the vigilantes and supporters of his, he would take the blame. But he had been warned violence was very likely if he did nothing. And the people who were giving him these warnings were people who had supported him in his campaign.
Oh, so he's in a tight spot.
Yeah. They warned that something had to be done with the mob that gathered under the cover of darkness and would cause harm to anyone that was brave enough to show them opposition. Governor Marmaduke handed the problem over to his most trusted subject, General James Jameson.
That's a good name. Poor guy.
His parents were nice. Jameson was born in Pike County, Missouri in 1830 and had spent most of his 20s prospecting gold in California before returning to his home state. He then fought beside William Walker in Nicaragua before serving under General Sterling Price in the Civil War at the Battle of Lexington in Missouri.
Well, that's really cool.
After becoming adjutant general, he utilized state forces to settle several labor strikes and unrest that had proven himself very helpful to the governor. Pretty much if he had a problem, he was like, hey, James,
Take care of this.
do this for me.
Work.
He arrived in Forsyth on April 8th, 1886. He held a meeting the next day in which he explained that the state government intended to enforce civil obedience in Taney County. He ordered the immediate disbandment of the vigilante group known as the Bald Knobbers. He gave them an ultimatum. disband, and the state would seek no further action and completely drop it, but continue to operate, and the state would send in the militia to restore peace and order.
Oh.
Yeah, he ain't screwing around. He had received promises from the Bald Knobber leaders that they would disband the groups, but there were many, including Kenny, that did not want to disband.
Of course you don't.
Yeah. Ultimately, the decision was made to heed the warnings and dissolve the vigilante group. On April 10th, about 500 men gathered on the square in Forsyth to draw up resolutions to disband the Bald Knobbers, stating that the local officials would handle all matters of law enforcement from that day forward. While many anti-Bald Knobbers were pleased with the outcome, many feared it was nothing more than an act for the government official, and that the influence of Kenny that he held over his followers was still far too great.
I agree.
Yeah. There was a great many people that felt Kenny should stand trial for the murder of Andrew Cogburn as well. Besides all of this, there was also an interesting trial happening in Taney County.
Ooh.
William Taylor, the brother of the Taylor brothers hanged by the Bald Knobbers, was on trial for the murder of Mac Dimmock. Jameson feared the Bald Knobbers would lynch him and undo all of the progress they'd made. To help alleviate these fears, the Bald Knobbers included in their disbandment resolutions that William Taylor would be given a fair trial by his peers without any interference from them. The prosecutor in the case reported there was really no reason for the Bald Knobbers to have gotten involved because the evidence against him was so good that he didn't stand a chance of acquittal. A member of the newly disbanded vigilante gang even offered to represent him at trial. Shockingly, Taylor was acquitted, but quickly left for his family's place in Marionville.
Interesting.
With so many sure of his guilt, he was shunned in Marionville and left there to make his home in Howell County.
That sounds familiar.
So for those of you that don't know, that's a neighboring county to where we grew up. That's the only reason I put that part in there. I was like, Howell County, I wonder if I know any of his relatives. Maybe not. Folks still believed that the Bald Knobbers were continuing their reign, but just being a little bit more quiet about it. Not quite so explosive. Yeah. Many anti-Bald Knobbers were experiencing property damage and fires, leading them to believe that this was retaliation for bringing in the government. Then, Sunday, May 9th, a killing would occur in Kirbyville, Missouri that would ignite even more speculation and outrage. Wash Middleton, a former bodyguard of Nat Kinney, shot and killed Sam Snap.
Oh, the step guy.
Sam Snap was the friend that was with Andrew Cogburn when Kenny shot and killed him at the church. While the Cogburn killing seemed to have different accounts based on which side was telling the story, this shooting did not. The same story was told by everyone. Based on eyewitnesses, the two men were sitting on a couple of boxes in front of the general store talking. Suddenly, Middleton called Snap a liar and they both stood up. Without any gesture from Snap, Middleton pulled his gun and fired at the younger man. Snap never made any attempt to pull a gun and was believed to have been unarmed. Nothing said that he wasn't. And instead retreated as Middleton fired more shots into his body. So he's trying to get away from him. He's not coming at him in any way. There is no way he can say self-defense. Several conspiracies started to circulate, including that Middleton was getting rid of the only witness to the killing of Andrew Cogburn, even though a grand jury had already cleared Nat Kinney of those charges, so that's probably not the case. The anti-Bald Knobbers and citizens of the county wrote even more letters to the governor and Jameson telling them the Bald Knobbers were back at it and had killed again. Middleton was convicted of second-degree murder more than a year later and sentenced to 40 years in Missouri State Penitentiary, with the sentence later being reduced to 15 years.
Well, that's a big difference.
It is. Before he was transported to the penitentiary on October 16, 1887, Wash broke out of the county jail and escaped to Arkansas. People were outraged. They were sure that the Baldknobbers had broken him out, and there was even rumors that they had given him a gun and they had given him food and a horse and all this stuff to get him to freedom. Nat Kenny told a Springfield newspaper that Wash's son had come from Arkansas to break out his father and that the former vigilante group had nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Though he did remark that Wash knew the Ozark Hills enough that he would not be caught after fleeing.
Mm-hmm.
The family of Sam Snap put out a bounty of $100, and the governor issued a reward of $300 for the capture of Wash Middleton. A posse led by Charles Richardson located Middleton near Boone County, Arkansas, but Middleton was able to escape after killing Richardson. At an Independence Day picnic in Newton County, Arkansas, Detective James Holt caught up to Middleton and attempted to arrest him. When Middleton resisted, he shot him dead.
Wow, he wasn't messing around.
No. Well, he's already killed one guy that was sent to get him, so, you know, I wouldn't take chances.
That's valid.
Wash Middleton was buried in an unmarked grave in Parthenon, Arkansas.
Parthenon?
Mm-hmm. While things were calming down some, those old oppositions did not die easily. In most cases involving any court or public hearings, the sides tended to show Baldknobbers against anti-Baldknobbers. Everything that you could say you could choose a side on, you've got Baldknobbers on one side, anti on the other. But mind you, I will again mention there were also different political parties. So maybe they just think differently than each other.
That probably is another part or something. Yeah.
While
So.
while Nat Kinney had disbanded his group as instructed by the state, he still liked to stick his nose in other people's affairs, it seems.
There's always that guy.
There's that guy. He's like, I can fix everything. In early 1888, Mrs. Ann Berry filed for divorce from her husband, John Berry. She accused him of serial infidelity and domestic violence. Berry was the owner and operator of a successful mercantile in Forsyth, and Mrs. Berry petitioned the court to seize her husband's assets that she thought were probably around $5,000 worth to provide for her after their separation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She hired George Taylor. I don't know that he's any relation to the others.
I was getting ready to ask that.
I don't think so. He's a Baldknobber. So she hired George Taylor, a friend of Nat Kenny, as her lawyer. It does appear that there was some sort of relationship that formed between Mrs. Berry and her attorney, Taylor, because he moved into the hotel that she managed.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Berry accused them of having an affair, and formal charges were filed against Taylor for illegal cohabitation with Mrs. Berry.
Oh my goodness. What a mess.
Yeah. John Berry ended up with charges against him for threatening Taylor after he pulled a gun on him.
Jeez.
While there was no real Baldknobber business here, again, the lines are clear.
Kind of
Berry
fishy.
was a hardcore anti-Baldknobber. Taylor, a buddy of Nat Kenny, Baldknobber. So, there you go. Brothers Billy and James Miles, also anti-Baldknobbers, acted as bodyguards for Berry should any of Taylor's friends try to take revenge on him. They also testified on his behalf in the adultery trial. On the other side, Nat Kenny stood by his friend Taylor and testified on his behalf in the adultery trial. The Berry brothers' store was placed into receivership pending the outcome of the divorce settlement. So it's kind of being held. You know?
Yeah. On standby.
Yeah. Nat Kenny offered to serve as receiver, which would include taking charge of the store and doing an inventory of the items within.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's his place. August 20th, 1888. Nat Kenny was working in the store with another man, William Beeman. He's just kind of there. I don't know what he's doing, but he's hanging out. when Billy and James Miles came in to get a drink of water from the barrel. There's a water barrel in there. At different times. I don't know. Of course, there's no way to know for a fact what happened next, but at some point, an argument broke out between Kenny and Miles.
Of course.
Nat told Billy Miles to leave the store, and he refused. Both men drew their guns, but Miles got the first shot.
Uh-oh.
It ricocheted off Kenny's forearm and entered his body. Okay, a bullet ricocheted off his forearm, like...
How big is this guy?
He's the huge guy we've been talking about this whole time.
Gosh.
But, like, now I'm like, oh, okay. So he was, like, he was really huge. He was, like, made of steel.
Yeah. Superman.
Miles fired 3 more shots, killing Kenny without him ever firing a single shot.
Wow.
According to Miles, right before the shots were fired, Kenny shouted at him, "Billy Miles, you damned son of a bitch, I'm going to kill you."
Yikes.
James Miles, who was with him, his brother, and William Beeman, the other man in the store, corroborated the version of events.
Bet you neither one of them said the right thing or the same thing.
Yeah,
They
they
did?
did. Yeah, that's what I said. They corroborated it.
Oh, sorry, I missed that one.
You look like you're paying attention, but
Maybe I just didn't know what the word was, okay?
if I can't even keep your attention.
You got my attention. I just didn't know what the word meant.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have made it clearer.
No, that's
So-
not your fault that I don't understand. Don't be using big words.
You will learn so much. It'll be fun. Billy Miles then reloaded his pistol, walked outside, and announced he had killed Nat Kenny in self-defense. He was arrested without any incident and taken to jail. Billy Miles was released on a $5,000 bond. Many people feared this was going to lead to a new surge of violence from the Ballnovers to avenge the death of their leader. Reporters who visited said citizens walked around town heavily armed, ready for the violence to break out. On October 9th, a grand jury handed down an indictment of murder in the first degree for Billy Miles and accessory before the fact on James Barry.
What?
What? Wait, is his name James Barry or is it John Barry? It's John Barry. James is his brother. Sorry, I got mixed up. Okay.
Get your shit together, woman.
James Barry. I was like, wait, who's that? John Barry. There's a lot of names. And they're all the same names because it's so old and everybody's name. Like you're going to see, we've already talked about like 4 Williams. There's still like 6 to go. So everybody's named the same thing.
And you wonder why I can't pay attention.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out who everybody is.
Oh, well, just wait. We have another one coming here shortly. So, shortly before the shooting, John Barry entered the offices of the Taney County News carrying a rifle. James DeLong, there's another one, the stepson of Nat Kenny, ran that paper, and he was busy dealing with a customer and didn't pay any attention. According to some of the papers, when the shots rang out, everyone jumped to their feet, and Barry leveled his rifle at DeLong and wouldn't let him leave. Like he was holding him there because he knew what was going on over at the store. He's the owner of the store, remember? So, but according to DeLong's own testimony, Barry simply walked to the porch with the rest of them, and he never tried to keep anybody there. So he was just kind of there. Irregardless, he was charged as an accessory to the crime. Both men were relocated to a jail in Christian County to prevent mob violence.
That was going to happen.
Yeah. While awaiting trial, elections were held, and James DeLong won the election for prosecuting attorney. Oddly enough, this would put him in the position to prosecute the man accused of killing his stepfather.
Oh, no.
Which I would think would be a conflict of interest, but that's just me. The trial was moved to Greene County on a change of venue, and the prisoners were moved to Springfield. Billy Miles quickly posted a bond of $1,000.
That's a lot of money.
In that time, yeah.
This
But
time it's a lot of money.
he had a lot of help from his anti-bald knobber friends, which really got the conspiracy going that this was a hit on Nat Kinney by the anti-bald knobbers, and that's why they were getting him out and taking care of him. He returned to his family farm in Taney County and managed to stay out of trouble for months. Then, a man named Ed Funk arrived in Taney County from Eureka Springs, Arkansas. He was known as a deputy or a private detective, and he was apparently trying to find counterfeit money operations. I don't really know why he was here, but it's all very weird. The way the story goes, it's not real clear. And he didn't really do anything with that part, but he did end up getting his partner killed trying to catch a couple thieves in a sting.
Wow.
So that happened to him. And then he sets up this sting with this shop owner to catch these thieves, and his partner gets killed.
Mm-hmm.
He caught the thieves, but his partner got killed. He had no alliance to either the bald knobbers or the anti-bald knobbers. Didn't give a shit about their stuff. But he did end up involved. In a book written about the bald knobbers, the authors allege that Funk was offered $1,500 from the bald knobbers and Kenny's widow to kill Billy Miles. On July 4th, 1889, Funk attended the Independence Day picnic at a local campground. The new sheriff, Galba Branson, along with 3 Miles brothers, James, Billy, and Emmanuel, attended as well. Sometime that evening, around 5 o'clock, the Miles brothers walked down to the spring to get a drink of water, and Funk followed, and Branson followed him.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And Funk had made comments to Branson that the men were carrying concealed weapons and should be arrested. And so it was believed that that's why these 2 lawmen went after them, was to arrest them for carrying concealed weapons. When Funk approached Billy Miles at the spring, he leveled his pistol at the man and asked if he was armed. Billy said, yeah. And Funk demanded that he give himself up. But he wasn't paying attention to his brothers that were just a short distance away. When James turned and saw a man pointing a gun at his brother, they're scared the bald knobbers are coming after their brother. They're constantly scared. So he sees this guy pointing a gun at his brother, and so he just pulls his weapon and goes pow pow into that guy's chest, dropping him. As Sheriff Branson arrives just in time to see Funk fall and draws his pistol and starts shooting at James. He fires 6 times, hitting him once. The bullet, it passed through his scrotum into his leg. That's all I'm going to say about that. Ow. Yeah. Billy pulled his gun and shot the sheriff in the leg and then in the head, killing him.
Oh my goodness. What a massacre.
Yeah. It's just a cluster is what it is. Cluster. Billy and Emmanuel carried their brother to a friend's house for treatment. Billy fled to Springfield, where he surrendered to law enforcement. James was also arrested, but Emmanuel was free because he didn't take any part in the killings. He was just standing there watching bullets fly around. Like, what the hell is going on?
Where do I go?
I am never leaving my house again. First, Billy Miles and James Barry had to stand trial for the murder of Nat Kinney. There's so many murders we're doing trials for. James Barry's trial was first. The issue was the lack of evidence against him. On August 30th, 1889, the jury acquitted him of all charges.
Aww.
Billy Miles' murder trial began March 18th, 1890.
I don't even remember how these people got killed or which part was them.
Billy is the one who shot Nat Kinney in the store.
Oh, okay.
Big guy, leader of the bald knobbers. Okay, I'm caught up.
There's so many.
After hearing over 100 witnesses and 8 hours of straight closing arguments, the jurors took a half an hour to return with a verdict of not guilty.
Whoa.
Yes. This trial happened in Springfield. Now, Springfield was probably the worst place the prosecution could have tried this case because folks in Springfield were not fans of the Bald Knobbers or Nat Kinney. Nat Kinney had sued the city of Springfield because he fell in a pothole and hurt himself, and he had won a settlement of $1,500.
Oh.
So,
fell in a pothole and hurt.
Taxpayers weren't happy that they were paying him for that. But also, they viewed the Bald Knobbers as just this violent gang that ended up causing more violence and problems than they solved. A Springfield newspaper actually called Kenny's death a good riddance and said that it had cleared Southwest Missouri of the root of evil for which it had been cursed.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I mean, he's not wrong.
Deuces. Get out of here, dude. You're dead. We're happy. That's
Pretty
cold.
much. That is cold.
Terrible. There was also a case out of Christian County that was connected to the Bald Knobbers that received so much negative attention that the vigilante name was considered just merely self-righteous criminals.
Mm-hmm.
They think they're right, but they're just criminals and terrible people. And we're going to talk about that case in a minute, but I want to first talk a little bit more about Miles Brothers. Because we're going to end with that case because it's a big part of this. Okay. So there was another change of venue to the Christian County for the Miles brothers, where they were acquitted of the murders of Funk and Branson. So those brothers, Miles has escaped conviction twice now and killed 2 people. But it seemed like people were over the Bald Knobbers.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just be done. The killings of Kinney, Branson, and Funk and the acquittal of their killers. With all of that, the reign of the Bald Knobbers came to an end in Taney County. Let's branch out. The Taney County Bald Knobbers, while being the first chapter, was definitely not the only Bald Knobber group. After the creation of the Taney County group, Nat Kinney went to Chadwick to help with the organization of a new chapter in Christian County. Dave Walker was made chieftain of this legion. Other counties had chapters, but this one was the most interesting to me because of the story that goes with this. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what you think. So I want to finish with this one. Remember, the original Bald Knobbers in Taney County were mostly well-off people doing pretty well for themselves. Even public officials, most of them. Mm-hmm. Those in the other counties, those chapters in other counties, they didn't have those well-off people, public officials. Mm-hmm. They were poor farmers, not doing so well, and many ended up facing criminal charges for their part in beatings and other violence. A lot of these charges were federal charges for violating the Homestead Act and forcing people off of their land illegally, which the Taney County guys did a lot, but these other guys got caught. Mm-hmm. And people weren't screwing around with them. I don't know. They were unlucky. These vigilantes did not have the same protection in their public office as those in Taney County. Let's talk about Christian County for a bit. Okay. Dave Walker, or Bull Creek Dave, was the leader of the Chadwick Legion of Bald Knobbers. They differed from the Taney County Bald Knobbers in a few ways we discussed before, but also there's a couple other ways. I'm not a part of this. They tended to punish people based on moral views rather than criminal, such as beating a man for not supporting his family or running his household the way that they thought he should.
That's not their choice.
Exactly. Many men were beaten viciously for being lazy in their eyes. Some even crippled. So now they can't work. Way to go.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Then there were the masks.
They wore masks?
Yeah. We talked about the masks in little bit last time.
Mm-hmm.
They're small sacks with eyes cut out. They would stitch around the eyes like a buttonhole. They would have big white circles on them, and then they made horns come off the top of them. They look like devils. Not well, but they're just plain creepy and not something you're going to want to see when you look out your window at night.
For
if you see a bunch
sure.
of these standing outside. It's like the movie The Strangers. Have you seen that movie?
Yes, I
Yeah,
have.
it's kind of like that.
That's what I was picturing.
Wait, didn't they wear plastic masks in that one? I don't remember. It's one of those
It's
movies.
still weird.
Yeah, it's gross. Well, they may have worn these to conceal their identity. It didn't really seem to do much good because most of them were identified by body type and voice anyway. Yeah, so when you have 100 people that live in your town, you're not going to get away with just a mask.
That's for sure.
William Edens unfortunately found himself in the middle of a late night visit by Dave Walker and his Bald Knobber group when they showed up at his house looking for his brother-in-law to whip him for showing up drunk to church and firing a weapon in the air as he walked home. He had a big day.
That's my kind of church.
As the men were beating him, Edens jumped between them to shield his brother-in-law and was struck a few times before Walker called off the vigilantes.
Aww.
This incident infuriated William Edens, and he was said to have commented in town that if the Bald Knobbers came to his home again, they would have to come back in the daylight to count their dead.
Wow. That's a big threat.
It is. So, of course, this got back to the Bald Knobbers, and they rode out to Eden's home, pulled him from his house, stripped him naked, tied him to an oak tree, and beat him bloody with switches.
Oh my gosh.
And then they mocked and laughed at him and said, "Hey, we'll come back in the daylight and see how many Bald Knobbers are laying dead." Gosh. Assholes. I'm not saying he should have said it. I'm just saying
Yeah,
maybe
but
that's a
that's
little
much for me.
a little
Mouthy.
intense for, yeah. It didn't seem to stop him from talking shit. And while he was in town one day, he said more
stupid
things. And the word got back to the Walkers again. And I talked about Dave Walker, but his son, William Walker, is actually another chieftain. I think he's like an assistant chief. I don't really know the ranks here, but he's like assistant to his dad. So he's second to them. So this gets back to the Walkers, and so they're like over it. And of course they're sharing it with their Bald Knobber buddies. That night, both adult children of James Edens was staying with him. His daughter, Melvina, had recently had a baby and was now suffering from the measles.
Oh no.
Yes. Her husband, Charles Green, had brought her and their 2 young children to her parents' house so they could help in caring for her. James had stayed up until after 10, attending to his daughter and dispersing her medication. William Eden, the one who likes to run his mouth, and his wife Emma was also staying over.
So it's a family affair.
Yes. Around that same time, let's say 10 o'clock, about 10 or 12 Bald Knobbers entered the home of William Edens and found him gone. So they headed for his father's home. He must be at his daddy's house. So they head there. As they reached the Edens' home, one called out for William to come out or they would kill him. William was awakened by this, and he jumped up, pulling on his pants and yelling to his father that the Bald Knobbers were there. James grabbed for his gun, but it wasn't there. His wife quickly found it and handed it to him. At that moment, the window was busted and 3 shots fired into the home.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm. Then both doors were broken down, one by Wiley Matthews with an axe that he had found in the yard. Around 10 men swarmed into the small cabin. 3 of them grabbed James and tried getting the gun from him. He was able to break free long enough to fire a few shots, hitting William Walker in the leg with one. He saw something coming at his head and ducked, but still took a hard hit from the axe, just as someone else fired a shot that ripped through the side of his neck. He fell unconscious across his daughter-in-law, Emma. While this struggle was going on, William, his son, was approached by one of the masked men and told to put his hands up. He complied, but another vigilante fired a shotgun into his back, several pellets piercing his heart, and about the same time, another shot him in the back of the head with a rifle. Just a short distance away, another intruder shot Charles Green through the temple. When Melvina saw her brother killed, she jumped from her bed. One of the men raised his gun to shoot her, but she deflected the barrel with her hand. The bullet blew off the tip of her pinky, and her dress caught fire. She wrestled with the man, and she was able to pull the mask partly off his face and saw that he had no beard, which in that day would mean he was a young man. The bald knobbers quickly exited the cabin and left in the darkness. But Emma was able to get out from under her father-in-law and get to her husband, and she heard a couple of the men outside saying, shoot him again, and they fired more shots. It was really not clear on that part, but there was something that was like, it wasn't like heat of the moment. They were like, oh, we need to shoot, everybody left. But then they just left. So yeah, this incident changed the Bald Knobber name forever. This was a group of morale men upholding values and enforcing law. It had become a group of ruthless killers that would go into a family home and kill and maim innocent people.
That's so sad.
The public view of the Bald Knobbers was changed that night, and this fall from grace was going to be a very hard one.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see what I mean. Christian County officials were fed up with the vigilantes, and a special session of the circuit court resulted in over 80 people facing more than 250 charges varying in severity.
Holy crap.
They started charging anybody who had ever went to a Bald Knobbers meeting.
Good.
Yes, with unlawful assembly. So that's what that was. James Eden, while badly wounded, survived the attack, but his son William Edens and his son-in-law Charles Green did not. The women were able to identify some of the people that were in the cabin that night. Like I said, they know them.
Mm-hmm.
The sheriff made pretty quick work of gathering them up. He actually, so William Walker was shot in this. And so his dad had sent him to family, out in the hills, to stay to get better. And he ended up tricking him into going with a friend of the family. He got him involved. And ended up tricking him into going to West Plains with this man, and then just went and picked him up in West Plains. So he was like the last one for him to gather because he, had gotten out a lot easier. But yeah, so he was told, hey, dude, I'm going to come and get you. We're just going to scurry over to West Plains, and then we'll run down to Arkansas and we'll be home free. And then he got to West Plains and he, sent a telegraph and was like, okay, we're in West Plains, come pick him up. And he was caught. So good job, Sheriff. He gathered up like 26 people.
That's a lot.
Yeah. On April 21st, the grand jury handed down indictments for first-degree murder against 12 men for the killing of William Edens and Charles Green. Yes. These men included David Walker, which we're going to talk about. Let's just talk about him real quick. Okay. David Walker, he was the chieftain, right? Now, many people testified that night they were not going to the Eden's house. They were going somewhere else, and they got sidetracked, and a bunch of people went to the Eden's house. And that one of the men had said, "Hey, Dave, they're going to the Edens." And he called them off and was like, "Stop. No, we're not doing this." And they went anyway. I just felt like it was important to say that. But he's charged as being their leader. So I don't know.
Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he did that or not. Of course, nobody does except those men who are dead. But that was a story told, that he tried to call them off and told them, do not go to their house.
Whether it's true or not.
Well, the way that he is, I mean, they went and beat him the time before. So why would they not do it again? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. So either way, David Walker, his son William Walker, John Matthews and his nephew Wiley Matthews, C.O. Simmons, Gilbert Applegate, William Stanley, William Newton, Charles Graves, Joe Inman, Amos Jones, and Andrew Adams were all charged with the murder of the Eden Green. So, great. After many continuances and a few trials, actually, many of the men ended up taking plea deals for second-degree murder or turning state's evidence. So at one time, David Walker said, "You guys notice who's getting out of here and who's not. You're going to see them at your trial testifying against you." When actually, I think it was only one man actually turned state's evidence against and testified against them. So not terribly accurate, but still, it makes sense. That's what everybody would think, I think. 4 of them, William and Dave Walker and John and Wiley Matthews, faced trial, were convicted and sentenced to hang.
Oh, snap.
Mm-hmm. They immediately appealed their convictions. In December 1888, when the Supreme Court denied their request to overturn their convictions, they began planning their escape. John Matthews was a talented wood carver. He was permitted to keep his pocket knife and given a stick to whittle.
Yeah, let's please him.
He used these to carve keys to the cells.
That's so insane.
So what he did apparently was, I don't know how he got his hands on it, but this is the story that is told everywhere. I think it's got to be true. Somehow they got their hands on the keys. They took those keys and made an impression in a bar of soap, and he used that
to carve out a key.
And he ended up actually getting a piece of iron too, because there was like a bigger lock that they needed to get out of, and the wood wouldn't hold up to it. So he ended up being able to get some iron, and he melted that down and got that key.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but once you get out there, there's also the wall around the jail. That's a different story, right? So what they started doing was picking out the mortar between the bricks and loosening the bricks, and then they would just put them back in their place. And there was a stack of firewood. They stacked it back in its place, and that's how they concealed the area that they were pulling out of the wall so they could get out of there. So that's
pretty
fun.
Smart.
It is, actually. On December 28th, Sheriff Johnson was awoken in his sleeping chambers in the jail. He found that John and Wiley Matthews, along with 5 other prisoners, had escaped. A guard was bound and gagged on the floor, and Dave and William Walker were standing in the yard. They claimed they'd not tried to escape, which is probably accurate because the appeal for Dave Walker had not been ruled upon. Mm-hmm. So he still appealed his conviction or his death sentence. And William thought the governor was going to grant him clemency because of his young age. John Matthews didn't do so well on the run. He was older and he nearly froze to death.
Oh,
It's
awful.
It's December 28th is when they break out, so it's cold. So he made his way to a farm and they turned him in. And he was back in jail. Interestingly enough, Wiley Matthews was never recaptured.
Really?
Yeah, he got away.
Damn it.
Yeah. The court ruled against Dave Walker, and the execution date was set for all three men on the same day.
Oh, wow.
Many petitions began circulating, and calls and letters were sent to the governor, hoping for him to intervene to save the lives of the condemned men. He made the decision not to intervene.
Like, why
And
would he?
a little bit of just ness.
What is that?
That's he had a telegraph sent that said, "I declined to intervene." And the one who sent the telegraph, who typed it wrong and typed, "I decided to intervene."
Oh.
And so there was cheers and they were so happy because their lives were saved. And then they got the next telegraph. It was like, "Oopsies." Well, it's totally meant declined.
Psych.
Yeah.
That's awful.
That's terrible. I don't know. I mean, I read that many places, so I guess that's probably true. Oh my God, that's terrible.
Don't you think you should really pay attention with those words?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God, that really got me. So the preparations began to ready the stockade for the executions. Dave Walker spoke to Sheriff Johnson. He told him he didn't want to die at the hands of a stranger and asked him to perform the execution, even though Johnson had never been a part of an execution.
Oh, gosh.
Johnson reluctantly agreed, and this would prove to be a big, big mistake. The night before the execution, the men took part in religious services. The Walkers were resolved and calm, while Matthews paced, sang hymns, prayed, and shouted about his innocence from time to time. The Walkers went to bed and slept soundly, while Matthews stayed up most of the night and only fell asleep about dawn as the Walkers were arising. The three men ate a hearty breakfast that was followed by more religious exercises by three of the ministers that were attending the execution.
Wow.
At just after 9 a.m., here we go. The men were led into the stockade built to conceal the gallows. Only a handful of people were permitted inside, including the jurors in the case, 3 ministers, 3 physicians, and some journalists. The men were given the opportunity to speak. The 2 Walkers said while they were innocent, they were ready to die. John Matthews, not such a pleasant speech.
He's struggling.
He gave a long, rambling statement about how he was innocent and that this was going to leave his wife a widow and his children with no father. And okay, I'm sorry, but did you ever think of that when you were hanging people before they had a fair trial? Don't talk to me. Whatever. He continued to ramble on as the sheriff placed the noose around his neck and the hood over his head. Dave and William Walker shared a kiss before the hood was pulled over their heads. I can't take that.
Oh, come on.
He kisses Daddy before they die. I'm all right. At 9:54 a.m. Pay attention to the time. At 9:54 a.m.
Okay.
The sheriff pulled the lever to release the trap doors. And everything kind of went to hell.
Why?
John Matthews' neck was broken and he died as expected. Good, because
The father and son?
the Walkers didn't get it so easily. Dave Walker's rope was too long, So his feet barely touch the ground. So he is frantically flailing about, trying to push himself up on his feet because he can touch the ground just enough to take a little bit
of pressure off.
of weight off his neck. And obviously your body naturally is going to fight to stay alive. And oh my God.
Ew.
Yeah. So
There's that.
His son's rope came completely undone, sending him crashing to the ground on his knees and then his face. And he falls over moaning, spitting blood on his hood. It's a scene. So they left Wiley or
Dave.
No, they left William, the son, lying on the ground. And the sheriff and his deputies grabbed the rope of Dave Walker and lifted him off the ground to strangle him.
Oh.
They attempted to do this to William. Oh my God. But the noose slipped completely off of his neck, sending him crashing to the ground again, and more blood gushing from his face as he's begging them to just end it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. This is just disturbing. They carried him back up onto the scaffold and set him there until the physician declared his father and Matthews dead. At 10:16.
Holy crap.
We are 22 minutes later. They retied the rope and hung William again. Again, it didn't work. The rope was the weight. It was the weight this time, so his neck wasn't broken, and it took him 16 minutes to strangle to death.
So it's like 30 some minutes later.
Yeah. The youngest one.
But he had the axe, right?
Yes, he did.
So
No. Not William. William's the one that got shot. Wiley's the one that had the axe.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Are you
I
sure?
misspoke. Yeah, Wiley had the wax. Oh, fuck. The axe.
You can't say the F word.
I messed up. So, oh my God. They cut the men down and placed them in coffins to be taken for burial.
And they was thinking, what a shit show. I just did.
Yeah. People who were watching were crying. A lot of people fainted. It was, and then of course it hit the papers, and those reporters who watched the whole thing reported everything in the papers.
And that's how you
that's how I found
out.
it. Was like the headline was something about a botched hanging in Christian County, and I was like, okay, let's see what this is about. And then I was like, why did I do this? This is the worst thing I've ever read. The first time I read about it, I was crying like, oh my God, make it stop, make it stop, make it stop. And yeah, and that's why I said I don't think I can do this on a live, because the hanging is awful.
Just all
really
the people
awful.
they tortured and stuff.
I know. I mean,
How is it awful?
and there's so many people who say like, you
It's
think
karma.
maybe it went wrong for a reason. Like they're not gonna get it that easy. But oh God,
No, definitely karma. I mean, they beat the crap out of people. Yeah. Don't cry about that.
yeah, I get it. But well, and like I said, here they are like trying to get the governor to grant them clemency and or trying to get the Supreme Court to overturn their convictions and shit. And I'm like, wait, you didn't even let people have trials.
Right.
So
You're beating up on women and
don't talk. don't talk to me because you don't deserve. I mean, you are getting the treatment you took from them.
Right.
By taking the justice into your own hands.
Yeah,
Like,
there's no feeling sorry for them. That's for sure.
I still do.
I
Well,
know.
and that's why vigilantism just makes me crazy because I'm like, how can you do it?
Don't feel sorry for them. They even got a fair trial.
Yeah, I know. But that's what I mean. Like, how could you ever do something to somebody like that? Regardless of what they've done, you don't have to become the monster. And that's what happens. Like, you become the bad guy.
The one thing that the ball numbers were totally against, and the reason why they came together was because it was people getting bullied and stuff. And then here they are, got a little power, and they go psycho.
It seems like it. And I don't want to say like all the ball numbers are bad or all the vigilante groups are bad. I don't think that. I think a lot of them probably did a lot of good. They probably helped a lot of people. But to get that power and to know you are above the law, or to think you are, at least, it just corrupted so much.
All these innocent people.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And like getting beat up because they think you're lazy. I mean, come on.
I know. There's a lot of other stories about things they did that I couldn't find any examples, so I didn't share. But I mean, if you look them up, if you're interested at all in expanding, then you can find more things. But and I might look for some like individual stories that I could find to share on the live tomorrow. Just expand a little. Yeah. But I don't know. That's just what somebody told me that when I was young. I can't remember what we were discussing, but it was like getting revenge, basically, or getting back at someone somehow for something. And like, at what point do you become exactly what you're fighting against?
Right.
You know, somebody has murdered somebody, so you kill them, and then now what do we do to you? Like what makes you the authority to decide that they should die because of that? I don't know. But the big issue with the vigilantism is taking it out of the hands of the law. And like, I've said it a million times, because if you're ever in a situation where you're on the other side of the law and you've done nothing wrong, but they think you have,
you're automatically guilty in their eyes.
Yeah. And if you're ever in that position, it will change your life forever. The way that you see the justice system, everything will change. It will alter how you see it. Sometime I'll tell my story.
You criminal.
I know. Well, it's nothing like a murder, but I'm just saying.
Well, I know.
Like, once something like that happens to you and you've seen it from the other side, you're sitting on the opposite end, and you think, oh my God, I've literally done nothing wrong.
And they don't believe me.
They don't believe me. And so in that situation, if it is a murder, just because they think you have done something doesn't mean you have done something. And so you deserve that fair trial, or what have you. The system works because innocent people should not be convicted. That's the whole reason.
Yes.
And if you're ever innocent and being held responsible for something that you didn't do,
that's got to be one of the scariest things
you will
ever.
see it a completely different way. I promise you.
Oh, I'm sure.
I thought I am empathic. I mean, I feel for other people. I can put myself in other people's shoes. I did not ever think I could do that. And I never did. Once it happened to me, I then was like, there's no going back. Like I've felt something that changed me, and I will not ever see the system the same way again.
Mm-hmm.
Never again. Yeah, that was when I was like, I'm going to go to law school and be a defense attorney, because
This is unfair.
I don't want this to ever happen to anybody else again.
Well, look at they have like a whole series about innocent people that's been in prison.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, that's legit one of the scariest things ever.
It is. It's terrifying to think that can happen to people. But also, like, would you want to be the person who went and hung somebody and then found out they weren't responsible?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that happened in a few of these that we talked about. They cleared somebody's name after they had.
Wow.
So, yeah, I can't imagine, because at that point you are a murderer. You murdered somebody, and you can't reverse it. You cannot make yourself right in that situation. You cold-blooded murdered somebody. And I mean, I think you did anyway, no matter what they did. But I don't know. I can understand. I totally understand getting so mad or so upset about the loss and
losing focus.
Yeah, but also, like, if it's your family,
and they have somebody who they think may have done it, and your anger just goes towards that person, and automatically know they're guilty. Yeah.
I can totally understand it. I totally understand how you can be that upset. But again, what makes you right to do it to them?
Mm-hmm.
If what they did was wrong, how is you doing the same thing right?
I get it.
It's just I can't work that one out. I can't do it. But anyway, that's the ball knobbers.
That's intense.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so pretty much with that, the ball numbers were done. The biggest pieces of the ball numbers were done. And then they're a show in Branson now. That's it. And Fire in the Hole at Silver City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. So, what did you think? It was a big one.
It was. You worked on this one hard.
I worked my tail off, man. And like I said, I would just be looking and trying to finalize a couple pieces, and then be like, oh, there's something. And
there you go.
6 pages later, I'm like, oh, okay, well, we'll leave that in there.
It's crazy. It's just what I expected.
Is it?
Yeah, it turned out awful.
Mm-hmm.
Like innocent people getting hurt and killed, and it took a major thing to finally stop it.
Mm-hmm.
It just really sucks. It
does, but it does seem like Nat Kenny, at least when he was told to disband, he disbanded.
Mm-hmm.
So I had different takes on that. There were a couple that said Nat Kenny was the one who was like, no, government said to disband, we disband, it's done. But there were so many other places that was like, he didn't want to. But another leader in the organization won out that fight, and they disbanded. So I don't know which way to go with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think it's sad that so many people had to die for no reason.
Right.
No reason. None at all. Just like a pissing contest is really what it came down to.
Oh, yeah.
Like, no, I'm right. No, I'm right. Well, you called me a bad name. I'm going to kill you. Like,
right.
Okay.
Good reason to die. Or to shoot someone.
Right. So, ball numbers is done. I can't believe the ball numbers is done.
Man, it's been on the board forever.
Since day one. This one's been on the board.
You get to erase it?
Yeah. It's a little sad. Like, we just end it now? Are we done?
We'll wait until after our live. How about that? I'll give you one more day.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine with me. All right, guys, we will be live Saturday. Hopefully you're able to listen to this before then because otherwise
It's
it
almost
might
midnight
not make
right
sense.
now.
Yeah. Great work, Shayla.
It's
So
scary.
enjoy this and we will see you live. We might ruin the ending for you if you don't listen to this before. Please listen to this before.
They have tomorrow morning.
Yes. All right. Have a great week. We don't have any new reviews, but of course you have to put out episodes to get reviews. So
We
I
are
get it.
failing
I get
so
it, guys.
bad.
I totally get it. Again, thank you for all the support and sweet words whenever I have to be late. Have a great week. We love you guys so much.
We'll see you this weekend.
Yay. Bye.
Bye.